Most of you guys have either been on an airplane or seen an airplane, but what most people don't know is the Wright brothers' first airplane and their creation of it. The Wright brothers weren't actually the first humans to fly. A lot of people created gliders, and yeah, but like the Wright brothers, what they did get credit for was that they created a aircraft that was powered, motorized, and they sustained a long period of flight. One of the key features of their airplane was that they understood that they needed lift, which they needed to have like an arch right here that created low pressure, and the bottom needed to be flat to create high pressure, which created lift. And the way that they did this was that they created their own wind tunnel, and it was the second wind tunnel in the U.S. that was ever created. And they used the wind to see the wing designs that they created, which would show that the metal thing would like turn to the direction that they wanted to. They created the wind tunnel. They created over 200 different types of wings. Like they started off basic as a flat one to see how it turned out, and then as they continued and wrote down more, more data, they discovered that pretty much what they thought they knew was completely wrong, and their wing design wasn't like a normal, which was pretty much that what they use for gliders is like two long sticks and a few like other sticks to hold it together. But what they did was they would bend the wood right here that would cause, as I said before, the low pressure on top and the high pressure on the bottom that would create the lift that they needed to fly. Another key thing that they did was they also like controlled the plane. Like previously, like the other gliders, the other people didn't really control the plane. All they did was fly straight. And so what they did, the wiring was pretty much just to tilt the wing, which would control the yawing of the plane, which was like back and forth that they could control. And also they were also the first ones to put a tail fin that had a horizontal movement, and that would like sustain the plane in flight and make it go straight and make it go where you wanted it to. Another key innovation that they created was the engine. They weren't the first ones to invent the engine, the combustion engine. It was already invented, but what they needed was one that was small enough and light enough to be put on their plane. So what they did, they were the first ones to ever create an aluminum-based engine, and the engine was only 4 cylinders and 12 horsepower, which was more than enough. They thought that they needed 8, but it turned out to be better. And here is the engine. It was placed on the left of or the right of the plane next to the pilot, so they can manage and see if there's something wrong with it. The vibration was the vibration of the engine was one of the problems that they thought of. And so the way that they solved the problem was they put a weight in the back to sustain the vibrations of it. Another key invention that they did, or that they created, was a propeller. They understood that the propeller was a wing in rotation. which that's why they caused the twist in it, as you can see right here. And they understood that since the outside of the propeller was rotating faster than the inside, they needed to make it wider, as you can see right here. After they pretty much invented, they started flying, there was other people that wanted to invent their own airplane and be written in history. But what they didn't understand was that they tried to use the propeller of that's called a screw propeller, and they were used on ships, and they pretty much did this, which didn't give them the power necessary to push the airplane and give it the lift that it needed to fly. So in conclusion, I have explained to you guys the Wright brothers plane, the engine that they use, the innovation of their propeller, the invention of their propeller, and also the wing and the controls that they use to fly the plane. Thanks.
Anthony, what did you think?
I didn't. Okay, cool. I liked his examples. The examples were really well thought through. But I didn't hear a thesis statement or like any set of credible like citations or like preview into what he was talking about. The second slide said the Wright brothers weren't the first to fly. So throughout the whole speech, I thought it was about other people because he kept on saying they. But then at the end, he in the conclusion, he brought it back that it was the whole thing was about the Wright brothers. So I guess that fixed my confusion. He was explaining the slides a lot. He pointed to the slides, which kept the audience interacted as well. Like it kept him interacted as well with the audience. Pretty good.
All right, Eddie, I feel a little bit like I got the middle part of the speech. There needs to be a clearer introduction. I think I agree with Anthony. I'm not exactly sure where you were headed with the speech at the beginning. In fact, it sounded like it was going to be the anti-Wright brothers speech at the beginning. You know, let me talk about what happened before the Wright brothers came along. But that appears to be really what your attention device was, although it's not very clear. And there's not a purpose statement at the beginning of the speech. So I know what the subject area is, but I don't know where you're going with it. In the body of the speech, it's all topically organized, and the reason that I can pick that out is because of the visuals, not because of a structure that you set up. So there's not, like I said, there's not a preview, and it needs to be a lot sharper. The visuals help you a little bit structure the content of the speech. At the end of the speech, you have a little bit better summary. That helps quite a bit at making it more coherent by the end of the presentation. It's a little bit like I've got pieces of information and they fit into a pattern, and I'm going to just share those pieces of information. It needs to be, I think, polished and put together a little more effectively because the stories don't really, there's not really a lot of story to them. It's just data here and there. You go through the whole process of describing the wings and the propellers, and I'm going, okay, well, how did they discover this? How did they know these things? You're telling us about the wind tunnel. I'm going, how did they even know to create a wind tunnel? There's no context for the information that you've got. It's like I've got technical engineering stuff that is being introduced to me, and I'm not sure why it's there and where it came from. Why are we doing these kinds of things? And you needed to give us, I think, a little bit more context for that sort of thing. You focused a little bit more in detail than I think you wanted to start with at the beginning. Did I ever tell you guys about that speech about the woman on the crew team and what she did, talking about the equipment on the boat? I think we mentioned this, generally the narrower your topic, the easier it is for you to focus on. You didn't go quite this far, but it's a good example of the same sort of thing. The first year I was teaching, I had this woman, she took me so literally, she did a 10-minute speech on the piece of equipment that holds the oar on the boat. She's on the women's crew team. I'm going, and nobody had any idea what the heck was. I said, maybe it would have been a good idea to talk about what the crew team is, what rowing is all about. Tell us something about the sport, not just about this technical piece of information. You're not quite that bad, but I feel like, you've narrowed it down. I want to talk about these engineering innovations that the Wright brothers came up with without giving it more of a context. I think I just gave you a better explanation of what your speech is about than you gave us. A lot of people think the Wright brothers were the first to fly. They weren't the first to fly, but I'll tell you what, they were the first to engineer flight that is self-propelled. And that's what I want to talk to you about, the engineering innovations that they created that made this whole idea of flight possible. There are 3 important things that they did. They figured out the aerodynamics of the wings. They created a engine that would actually function on the plane, and they created a propeller that would allow them to control the plane. And those are the things that I want to talk about. Now, let's go back and talk about those sorts of things and give it kind of a story pattern so that we know why we're looking at these pieces of information. That's what's missing from the speech. All right, you've all been very patient today. Thank you.